The Chicago Bears are bracing for a wild NFL draft weekend that could include moving Darnell Wright to left tackle. It could include multiple trades in this draft. We'll hear everything Ryan Poles had to say at his pre-draft press conference on today's Locked On Bears podcast.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1, and you can follow the podcast at Locked On Bears on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And on the show today, I want to bring you some of the most notable quotes from Ryan Poles and Ian Cunningham's pre-draft press conference, where they talked about the possibility of moving Darnell Wright to left tackle if the team acquires a starting caliber right tackle in the NFL draft. But we'll talk more broadly about what they're bracing for in terms of what they call a wild draft that could have lots of movement up or down multiple times for the Bears early in this draft. And then we'll hear from Ian Cunningham on how they're approaching the great running back debate of, do you draft one early? How early? It's a non-premium position, but is it worth the investment? And the answer is maybe, sometimes. But the big takeaway for me, the headline comment from Ryan Poles was how open he was to the possibility of, if a top flight right tackle prospect becomes available to them and they choose them potentially with the 10th overall pick, they could move Darnell Wright to left tackle. It's a conversation that kind of is ongoing. It's something they feel confident in Wright being able to do. And it's not something we've talked about a lot this offseason as a super strong possibility. I tend to think that if there's a player who played right tackle, and in this case, the elephant in the room here is Armand Membou, the Missouri offensive tackle, who's projected to go right around the Bears' draft range, that if the Bears were to draft a right tackle like Armand Membou, I think you could just move Membou to left tackle. But moving Darnell Wright to left tackle is not only a possibility here, but perhaps the more likely option if the Bears did draft somebody like Membou in the first round, because it's easy to forget, Darnell Wright has played left tackle before. He started 13 games at left tackle in college at Tennessee, the majority of his time at right tackle, but it's not like it would be a brand new foreign position for him. So we'll hear now from Ryan Poles on being asked about Wright and his answer for how they view that potential switch.
As it relates to draft preparation, how do you view Darnell Wright? Do you see him exclusively on the right side, or are you open-minded to shifting him to the left if something materializes that would?
Yeah, I think that's a conversation. We'll see how everything goes. He clearly has the ability to play left and right. We saw that in college. That was part of the value in taking Darnell. So if he had to play left, I think he'd play left. And obviously I think we're all excited about his stuff to go right.
So it's certainly not Ryan Poles saying, yes, this is the plan, we're imminently going to do this, and we've been planning this all along. No, this is Ryan Poles leaving his options open and having some flexibility built into his NFL draft plans, right? Ryan Poles doesn't want to go in this draft saying, well, I can only take a left tackle because that's the only spot that is open in our starting lineup. Like, no, maybe they could take a right tackle and move Darnell Wright over. They like to have that positional flexibility to say, guys can do multiple things, and we'll find a way to get the 5 best offensive linemen on the field. If that's Membou at right tackle and Wright at left tackle, or if that's Will Campbell or Kelvin Banks at left tackle and you keep Darnell Wright at right tackle, they've got different options there. I think what's important to note about this is that this year's draft class doesn't have much for top caliber right tackles. Most of the offensive tackles early in this draft are left tackles. We think about Will Campbell from LSU has been a left tackle throughout his college career. Kelvin Banks from Texas is a starting left tackle. And, obviously there's a debate as to whether or not those guys might kick inside to guard or not, but these are not right tackles that you got to figure out, are you going to move over to left tackle, or are you just going to leave them at that left tackle spot? Same thing with Josh Simmons from Ohio State, who maybe 10 is a little bit early for him, but if you trade it down, he's definitely going to be in the conversation there. But someone who played majority left tackle throughout his college career. It's really just Membu at the top there. I think Josh Simmons started as a right tackle early on, like his first year in college. He played some right tackle, but Membu's the only one who's been a firm right tackle, because Josh Connolly from Oregon has played left tackle his whole career. Technically, Ariante Ursi from Minnesota played one game of right tackle as a freshman, but otherwise was a 3-year left tackle starter. Like, you go through this offensive tackle draft class, and you have to get to like Ozzie Trapilo from Boston College was a right tackle, and he's not going to be until third round at the absolute earliest. So it's not like in this draft class there's all these right tackles that the Bears are going to have to decide, do we take one and move down right? It's pretty much just Armand Membu, and everyone else is, all the other top flight tackles are left tackles. Like, I don't know that there's another guy who is a day one starter on your offensive line who played primarily right tackle in college. Even Trapilo from Boston College, like, is a third round pick going to come in and be a day one starter for you? Probably not. And so Membu is the only pathway that moves Darnell Wright to left tackle, and yet Membu is a very possible pathway here, especially if Will Campbell's pretty strongly projected to go number 4 now to the New England Patriots. Kelvin Banks from Texas is going to be in this conversation as a top 15 pick, and he could end up being the Bears pick at 10. There's been a lot of smoke in that direction, but if somebody like Membu falls because he's a right tackle and because he's not the blue chip left tackle, because he didn't play like Joe Alt's position, right? Or even J.C. Latham, right? The left tackles tend to go a little bit earlier, and the right tackles, like Darnell Wright a couple of years ago, are the ones that tend to fall a little bit more. Personally, I think in this draft, Membu is of the caliber of the blue chip players at the very top, and he's probably not even going to make it to 10. I'm guessing Raiders at 6, Jets at 7, Saints at 9 are all teams that could be pretty strong possibilities for somebody like Membu there. Even the Panthers, you couldn't rule out at 8. Like 6, 7, 8, 9 are all teams that could take Membu, or they're all teams that could go running back, tight end, wide receiver, edge rusher, and Membu could fall. Like, there's a lot of different possibilities for how this plays out, and Ryan Poles wants to be ready for any of them. You'd hate to get to the spot where, oh man, Membu is the best player available on our draft board, but we've already got a right tackle, and so we don't want to just take another right tackle because, oh no, what are we going to do with 2 right tackles? Well, no, you move one of them to left tackle. It's just interesting that, Darnell Wright might be the guy more likely to move, than the rookie coming in who only played right tackle in his college career. So something to keep an eye on there as the Bears think about getting your 5 best offensive linemen on the field and your best ways to upgrade the offensive line. If that's Membu, I think you can all be very happy. I think Membu would be a really good scheme fit for Dennis, or for Ben Johnson's offense in terms of what he can do in the running game and his balance as a pass protector on the outside. I think you can be happy with any of those top offensive linemen. Campbell, Membu, Banks, even Josh Simmons if you traded down Josh Connolly from Oregon. It's a pretty good offensive tackle class at the top. There's been a lot of fretting about some people are really anti-Kelvin Banks from Texas, and I just don't quite see it. I think he's a really solid, consistent player who, again, any of those 3 guys at the top, you can move inside to guard if they really don't work out at tackle, and you're going to get a solid football player one way or another. So I would expect some kind of early investment in this Bears offensive line somewhere in the first, second, or third rounds of this draft. We'll just see which spot they end up doing it there, because they're expecting a lot of movement in this area. Despite no first-round picks having been traded so far, I think a lot of that's going to change on draft day once players start slotting into different teams, and all of a sudden the board's wide open, and there's going to be a lot of wheeling and dealing. So we'll hear Ryan Poles' perspective on why he sees there being a lot of movement and where the Bears could play into that next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. And FanDuel has an incredible way for you to get in on all the action, whether it's the NBA playoffs you want to bet on or this upcoming NFL draft. Right now on FanDuel, you can bet on who's going to be the number 10 overall pick, where right now Ashton Genty and Tyler Warren are tied with equal odds at plus 400 to be the 10th overall pick. The odds for team most likely to draft Ashton Genty is Raiders, Jaguars, then Chicago Bears have the 3rd best odds there. And you can bet on the Bears first position drafted in the draft. Where right now, tight end has taken the lead there, followed by D-line, followed by running back, followed by O-line in a very tight betting odds. So you can use your draft knowledge to make some real cash on FanDuel. And right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if that first bet wins. It's super easy, and the FanDuel app is easy to use and get your money paid out to you quickly. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today with America's #1 sportsbook. So perhaps Darnell Wright goes to left tackle. Perhaps he stays at right tackle. The Bears are open to every possibility there, and they're open to a lot of movement in this NFL draft. Ryan Poles said it straight out. Like, yeah, we think there's going to be a lot of movement. I think he used the word wild. I think he and Ian Cunningham both said, like, it's going to be a wild draft, a more wild draft than we're used to. Because there's always trades. There's always movement. But it's been sort of a quiet pre-draft lack of movement there. No players traded for first-round picks. No future first-round picks that were traded and dealt around. Like, everybody's picking in the order that they finished, and that's where things stand for the first round. But once those blue-chip players come off the board at the top, whatever number of players you want to put in there, Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Mason Graham, maybe Ashton Genty, Tyler Warren, Will Campbell, Armand Membu, Jalen Walker, wherever the cutoff is there, that's when everything gets blown wide open. And I think that's when the movement's going to start, and then it's going to be fast and furious. And I would not be surprised if the Bears make multiple trades in the first few rounds. I wouldn't surprise me if they traded 3 of their first 4 picks in some way, shape, or form, up or down. And I think in any of those spots, they could go up or down, depending on how the board plays out. I think the one thing I don't expect is that when you have 2 second-round picks at 39 and 41, I don't think they're going to use both. They could move up from 39, or they could move down from 41, but I don't necessarily expect them to do both in that direction. They'll stay probably at one of those 2 picks, but shouldn't be surprised at all if they move up or down from 10. I think they could end up moving up or down from 72 as well because of just how this draft class stacks out. So I want to play what Ryan Poles said about it, and he's a little bit vague about it intentionally because he's not trying to give away their draft strategy and their secrets here, but I want to sort of dig into what he says and kind of make it less vague and get a little bit more specific and pull out some details here.
I feel really confident where we're at. I think this one's going to be a little wild, but we're going to be prepared for all the different scenarios that pop up. The time working with Ben throughout this has been great. Some really good communication, some great discussions as we set the board and get prepared for the draft in a couple of days. I'll open it up.
What makes you say that about it? You think this draft in particular is going to be wild? What specifically are you thinking of when you say that?
Yeah, I think it's deeper in certain areas than others. Usually the cutoff is a little bit quicker. I think once you kind of get into 2, 3, and this one's going to be a little bit different. So I think there's going to be a lot more movement than there has been in the past.
I want to focus in on what Poles talks about. There's normally a cutoff, he said, like around 2 or 3, second or third round in there. But this year, he thinks that could extend a little bit farther. And so, what does he mean by cutoff? And I think the easiest way to, again, I'm going to oversimplify this because it's more complex than this in NFL draft rooms. But the idea is, right, in the entirety of the NFL draft, there are 257 picks. And the Bears will not put 257 players on their draft board, despite having a pick as low as 240. There won't be even 240 players on the Bears draft board. They'll stack up, what in a normal draft, they'll stack up whatever the first, call it 75 to 100 players in an exact order. Like, here's our big board. But they're not going to do a 257 player big board. From there, they're going to grade a handful of guys they see as 5th round picks, a handful of guys they see as 6th round picks, a handful of guys they see as 7th round picks. They're not going to have 257 draftable grades on players. They're not going to view a draft class as having 257 draftable players. There might be 200 draftable players in their eyes. And so after you get to this sort of like cutoff point of like, okay, now we're past the real premium strength of this draft, and then it's just about grabbing the guys we like. There's going to be teams that have very different grades on all the players that go in the 5th, 6th, and 7th round. And some of the guys in the 5th round, other teams will view as undraftable. And some of the guys that end up going to the 7th round, those teams will view it as 4th or 5th round caliber guys. Like there's just quite a variety of opinions there. And so that's the idea of like this cutoff of where we kind of get past those premium players. Like where do you get to the sort of free-for-all day 3 late round pick guys where who knows how any team's going to view a guy, and just if you have a high grade in a guy, go get him because you're not really worried about where other teams might have a guy. But what Poles is saying is like because of the depth in the middle of this draft class, where there's only a few really great players at the top, but then there's a bunch of guys in those next couple of tiers that might all be viewed kind of similarly, that cutoff point is going to be later in the draft, so that there's going to be a lot more fighting for players in the 3rd and into the late 3rd and into the 4th round of guys that you feel like, wow, we got a 2nd or 3rd round caliber player still lingering for us there in the 4th round. Now, the Bears notably don't have a 4th round pick this year, but when Ryan Poles is saying, hey, the cutoff's going to be later, that sure would imply to me that they would like to pick between 72, which is their pick in the 3rd round, and then their first pick in the 5th round, which is 148. There's, 86 picks in between those two spots? I think there's a very clear intention to add some more picks, at least one more pick before that 5th round pick at 148. Now, whether that means trading down from 10, trading down from 41, trading down from 72, but I think Poles sees this as like teams are calling and trying to judge ahead of time now, hey, how much might it be worth moving up to get to 41 if the Bears want to move down from 41, right? Or in whatever order this might be. I think Ryan Poles is going to wheel and deal, and I would be shocked if the Bears stay at 10, 39, 41, and 72. If the Bears don't move any of those 4 picks, I will be really, really surprised. One of those picks is going to get traded. All signs point to some direction. Ryan Poles is going to make some move. If I had to guess what was most likely, I think most likely is going to be up from 39, down from 72, or down from 10. I think moving up from 10 seems unlikely at this point, but I also think moving down from 41, I think they want to be in that sweet spot around 39 and 41. I think they want to capitalize in that moment. So I think they might separate those 2 picks a little bit, but they're not going to move both of them. And I think we're going to see a lot of movement from Ryan Poles in this draft. A lot of movement from a lot of different teams as picks go up and down. And whatever draft order you got right now, it's going to be very different when the draft is all said and done. That's right around the range where I think the Bears are most likely to make that splash running back pick. I don't think Ashton Jeanty is going to be there for them at 10. I don't think the Bears are going to trade up for Ashton Jeanty from 10. I think Jeanty's going to go, 5 to the Jaguars, maybe 6 to the Raiders, 7 to the Jets is a possibility, 9 to the Saints. There's a lot of teams in between the Bears and Ashton Jeanty, and I don't think Jeanty's going to make it down to 10. And so if Jeanty doesn't make it down to 10, I don't think they're going to take a running back that high. But Ian Cunningham, the Bears' assistant general manager, is very open to taking a running back early in this draft, and it might not even have to necessarily be Jeanty. But we'll hear from him on how they weigh like the value of Drake taking a running back when it's a less premium position and it's something you can find in other places. But if the right running back is there, well, I think he's got a good open mind to how this could shake out. Next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at Amazon Fire TV. Did you know that your Amazon Fire TV can also be an Xbox? That's right, you can turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV 4-stick devices. Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. And dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25, Madden, and Call of Duty Black Ops 6, and so much more, all as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. No console is required. The Fire TV Stick 4K is more affordable and easier to travel with, allowing you to take your games or your kids' games wherever you plug in. Just head to amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. It's going to be a wild draft for the Chicago Bears, and I think for all of us. So first of all, buckle up. But that wild draft could very well include a premium pick used on a running back for the Chicago Bears. And that's not something we've seen Ryan Poles be willing to do so far as Bears general manager. He has drafted 2 running backs so far, Roschon Johnson in the 4th round in 2023, and then Treston Ebner in the 6th round of his first draft in 2022. But this has been a general manager who has largely preferred to use early draft picks on premium positions. If you think about all the players the Bears have taken in the first 2 and even 3 rounds of the draft, you've got quarterback, Caleb Williams, wide receiver, Rome Odunze, offensive line, Darnell Wright, defensive line, Gervon Dexter, defensive back, Tyreek Stevenson, defensive back, Kyler Gordon, defensive back, Jaquan Brisker, like positions that tend to be harder to add top talent and positions that tend to get paid more in free agency, that have the highest salaries in the NFL, QB, wide receiver, O-line, D-line, cornerback. Like those are even Velus Jones in the 3rd round or Krana Magaji in the 3rd round, Zach Pickens in the 3rd round. Like these are all in that category of premium positions. And he has generally tended to wait until later to take the less premium positions like running back, I was going to say punter and special teams, but Torrey Taylor as a 4th round pick is a little bit higher than that, but he took, Trenton Gill in the 7th round. He's taken a couple late round safeties in Elijah Hicks and Kendall Williamson, and linebacker like Noah Sewell. He has tended to prefer positional value as a significant factor in who they draft early in drafts. But he hasn't necessarily been in a position to take a player like Ashton Jeanty. And so if that opportunity presents itself, we get the impression from Ian Cunningham that Jeanty especially, he doesn't reference Jeanty by name here, but I just think if you think about Jeanty as he's talking about this is kind of what fits the bill here as we would consider a running back here if he's truly a playmaker, even if that's a non-premium position. So here's assistant general manager Ian Cunningham, who is, of course, very heavily involved in the draft process.
Yeah, and there's obviously a bunch of really good running backs at the top of this draft. What's your philosophy in terms of weighing the instant reward of that position with also the longevity and how that compares to other positions?
Yeah, I think the values, if he's a playmaker and a really good player, you take a really good player. That's the beauty of our process. Our philosophy is best player available. We weigh premium position versus non-premium position, but at the end of the day, it's a playmaker, right? And if we see him in that role, I think you can go take a playmaker that's not a premium position.
So I think when Ian Cunningham talks about playmaker there, that's the same type of language they used when they signed DeAndre Swift and made him a premium free agent acquisition, really like the first guy they went after out of the gate in free agency. And some of the justification there is like, okay, yes, he is a running back and running ability is important. You can be a playmaker as a runner, but a big part of the sale of DeAndre Swift is like he's not just a running back, he's a playmaker for everything he's able to do for us in the passing game and how he's able to add that kind of dimension to an offense. And that's what makes him more than just a running back, but a full-on playmaker. And so I wonder if that's not a hint as to where they might want to go draft-wise as far as, hey, we'd be willing to take a running back early, whether that's the 1st round or, 2nd, 3rd round, a more of a premium position, if he can be more of a playmaker, right? Like a pass-catching running back with receiving ability that has upside there, as opposed to being a little bit more one-dimensional or someone who hasn't been used a ton as a receiver there. So I think about somebody like Cam Sketbo from Arizona State was a very effective receiver for them in that offense, or Brashard Smith from SMU is a converted wide receiver who can have that kind of playmaker ability. I don't know if Brashard Smith is a day 2 pick, but that's the kind of receiver I'm thinking about here. Whereas I feel like players like Quinshot Judkins and Travion Henderson from Ohio State, they weren't top flight receivers out of the backfield. They weren't like special route runners who were adept at getting open and making plays. But I think there's some really solid receiving options in here that I think somebody like Ashton Jeanty can be that playmaker after the catch with the ball in their hand, or somebody like Bashul Tutin from Virginia Tech. We've seen some of that same shiftiness in the open field and can be a plus player as a receiver. Even I think Caleb Johnson has some of that in some of that within him. So That to me, I think, is going to be one of the key factors when we talk about the Bears drafting a running back early. Is like after Gentry's gone, can the next running back they consider taking early, can that player be a true playmaker beyond just their actual rushing ability? Do they have that kind of passing game ability? And also, pass protection is part of playmaking, right? If you can pick up the blitz and give your quarterback that extra second of time, that helps your offense make plays. Like that's a difference-making type of play. And when we hear Ryan Poles use the word a lot, multiplier, this player's a multiplier for us. Like that's what I'm looking for out of the running back position. And somebody who might just be a really, really great runner, but a little bit more one-dimensional as a running back, as a football player overall. That to me doesn't sound like the type of playmaker that they'd be willing to use an early pick on because they're a less premium position. Certainly later in the draft, that opens up a bit more, right? The Treston Ebners of the world can be in that conversation. But early in the draft, that running back needs to be a well-rounded playmaker who can do a lot of different things and not just be a really good runner of the football, but receiver of the football and pass protector. And you can teach some of those things, but you at least have to see the skill set there, right? It's not like the player has to have had at least 300 receiving yards as a college. There's not like a number there. It's not purely about the production per se, but it's about the skill set. Because in some cases, the running back just didn't get used much that way in the offense, but it doesn't mean they're not capable of it. They just, for whatever reason, the scheme, they had really good wide receivers, and so they're going to throw to the really good wide receivers more than they throw to the running back. So it's not purely about usage, but it's about skill set. And whether you see them as a separator, as a route runner, as a playmaker after the catch, as an adept pass protector, or not, and that can separate where and who the Bears are willing to use premium draft compensation on. If and wherever the Bears draft a running back, you can be sure we'll break it down for you right here on the Locked On Bears podcast. So make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure you're coming back tomorrow and make Locked On Bears your first listen once again, because I want to talk about what it would look like for the Bears to trade in the second round, to trade up from 39, maybe get back into the first round and grab a premium offensive or defensive lineman there and double down on first round picks, what that might cost, who the Bears might move up for, or even potentially moving down in the second round and what kind of picks they could still accomplish. I want to lean into this wild NFL draft and what kind of trades could be in store for the Bears. So make sure you come on back tomorrow. Listen to Locked On Bears as your first listen once again for another opportunity to bear down.